Hi everyone, we are back with another video, and in this video we are going to be talking about timetable. As we go into week 2 of home-based learning, have you been using your time properly? How many of you have created timetables for this period of time? And is timetable effective for you? That's what we are going to be discussing today. The main motivation of creating this video is because one student actually reached out to me over Instagram in private message, and I really respect this student for taking up the courage to do so. So I hope that this video will help those students or parents to advise their child on how to work around scheduling of time instead of using a timetable. Let's get into it. Woo! The first thing that we are going to be discussing today will be why timetable fail. The first reason is because a lot of times timetables are too rigid, and in our daily life a lot of things happen spontaneously, and a timetable usually have everything nicely planned out, and when something jumps in and disrupt that schedule, we need to spend a lot of time and effort, mental energy to go and make this sort of adjustment, because all of this schedule will be shifted accordingly. And that leaves a lot of us tired before we even get on to the real task that we are supposed to do on the timetable. That's the first reason and the main reason why timetable fail. A second reason why timetable fail is because it is often too idealistic. When we sit ourselves down and we decide to do up a timetable, which is a very good process because it makes us go through the days and help us discover pockets of time that we have been wasting. But having said that, a lot of times we will start to realize that if I am just a little bit more efficient, I can do this certain thing within a shorter amount of time. For example, if I were to be more careful with my time, I can finish my shower in, let's say, 2 minutes and things like that. But how often can we really function at that 100% or near 100% capacity? It's unlikely and it's not practical, right? But more often than not, while we are designing our timetable, we did not account for that, I myself included. One other common thing that can happen while we are planning our timetable is this. When we see that the timetable looks too bare, we start to feel a bit uneasy or even ashamed of ourselves.
Have a great time.
You mean you're only planning like 2 or 3 things into your timetable? And we see all these big chunks of gaps in between. And what do we do in response to that? We start fitting in new things. Once again, it turns out to be overly decorated by the end of the activity, making it even more impossible to accomplish. So those are the 2 main reasons why timetable fails, and what are the possible outcomes when you do up a timetable. I think that there are 3 main outcomes that can happen to somebody who have designed a timetable. For those people who are in the first category, you managed to do it. You managed to achieve about 100% of what you have planned out. You did a perfect plan, you are very flexible, and you make impossible possible. You feel really good about yourself, and you should really pause the video and just close this window because you don't need to listen to whatever there's to come. If you're still here, perhaps you're in category number 2, which is that you complete about 60% of your tasks and you ache yourself to go on. But as the days goes on, you get more and more tired because you're trying to push yourself further than what you already could, assuming that you are trying your best. And what happens in response is that your efficiency actually drops. So instead of seeing an improvement, you may actually see that you're covering lesser and lesser things, even though you're trying harder and harder. And what's the repercussion of that? Is that your self-esteem will take a dent and you will deflate to the size of a plant. And the ironic thing is that you may be accomplishing way more things than you actually have been before you did up this timetable, but you are feeling bad about yourself. That's not what we want for ourselves, right? If this is also not the category that you fall under, then perhaps you're in category number 3, which is that you try to follow your timetable, but it is just too rigid, and you realize that, hey, I only complete 20% of whatever I've planned. This plan is not gonna work. I give up. End of story. So that whole planning process did not reap you any benefit at all. At this point in time, I'd like to sum up what are the pros and cons of timetabling. Number 1, it gives us a form of structure and a guide, especially when we are going through the day and we are sometimes lost at what we want to do. We can fall back on our timetable and tell us, okay, at this point in time, I should be doing this. So that's a good thing. And secondly, it helps you discover pockets of time that you might have overlooked or you might have spent idling. So that is another thing that we want to capture and incorporate into whatever that we are going to use as a substitute for timetabling. What about the negative aspect of timetable? Number one is that it is too rigid and it consumes a lot of mental energy for us to make adjustments, leaving us to be tired even before we start working on the task. So we want to reduce that altogether. At this point in time, you may be asking me, okay, so timetable is not going to work out. What do we have in place of timetable? I'm going to recommend to you one of the things that I have told my students to try out, and the name for that will be a time schedule list. Why is it called such a lengthy name? Because it incorporates a timetable, a schedule, and also a checklist. If you can come up with a better name for this, please leave it in the comments down below and I'll be really grateful. So at this point in time, we will just use the abbreviation TSL for this time schedule list. And just like the other videos, I have created a template which you can use as a guide to do up this plan. Do let me know in the comments or just drop me a private message about how these templates have been useful for you, because quite a bit of effort goes into designing these things. So I would really like to know if it is beneficial for at least one of you guys. That would really make my day. Without further ado, let's jump into step number one. Step number one falls in the time category, which is to find out how much time do you have in each day. The first task that I would like you to do is to take a pause right now and decide what is your waking and sleeping time, and calculate the number of hours that you have between these two portions. Welcome back! Was it an easy thing to decide what time to wake up and what time to sleep? If it is a challenging process for you, maybe you can check out this link over here to help you with deciding out an action plan. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is to block out the time that you need to do things that you cannot change. For example, during this period of time, many of you guys, if you are a student, will have home-based learning. And certain school gives you a home-based learning timetable, right? You don't have to copy the whole timetable into this TSL, but what you can do is that you can block out that whole chunk for home-based learning. If your family have certain routines like family dinner at a fixed time, then you can also chunk that out from your TSL. Alright! So once again, pause the video here and then quickly record down what are the time periods that you have little say in and you have to comply to. And I will see you in step number 3 very shortly. Welcome back! So in step number 3, we are going to decide on 2 to 3 main tasks that you're going to complete in each of the days. If it is on a weekend, perhaps you can push this to 4 or 5, but not anything beyond that. You may be asking me, why is it only 2 or 3? The reason because each of these items, I would like you to dedicate about 2 to 3 hours on that task. Did I hear somebody complaining that, what? 2 or 3 hours? Yes, you may not have that attention span right now, but that itself is the thing that we need to put in some training for. There are 2 main reasons why I would recommend 2 to 3 hours per task. The first reason is that if you are a student, you may be required to take exam papers which will last up to 2 hours. And you need to train yourself to have that stamina and that attention span to last through this whole period of time. That is why I would recommend that you start training for 2 to 3 hours of attention. The second reason is that research has found that it takes usually that amount of time for a person to get into this deep state of focus known as the flow. For now, just know that you need about 2 to 3 hours to get into that very focused state. If you are referring to our template, you will also realize that I have chosen the color red because these are your top priority tasks. If you have to make any adjustments, that should be the first thing that comes into your mind. These are the tasks that you want to accomplish regardless of the time of the day. So, get to work! Good job coming so far. Now let's go on to step number 4. Step number 4 is to re-energize yourself because you have spent 2 to 3 hours with your butts on the chair, and I suppose all your body parts are sore. So do try and incorporate about 45 minutes to an hour of exercise. If that's too much, maybe just 30 minutes at least, because you need to get your heart pumping. That is the paradoxical thing where you expend energy to get more energy. So try and slot in at least 30 minutes of exercise into each day. But before you go, let me move on into step number 5, which is to now reorganize these items in a way that is the most practical for it to happen in your life. Meaning that Right now, if you have your 3 tasks, rearrange them in a way that it is most likely for you to accomplish them, including the exercise portion. And right now, pause this video right here and carry on with that. Welcome back! Good job for going through all of that. We are at our last step, which is to make use of the remaining time. What I would like you to do now is to total up the time that you have used in your current plan and subtract it with that total amount of time between your waking up time and your sleeping time. And for that remaining amount of time, I would suggest that you use only 50% of it, if you would like, to slot in other things, whatever it is that you would like to incorporate into your plan. I would like you to remember that the blue tasks are good to have, not must have. In other words, if you can finish up all your red tasks, including the orange for exercise, you have already accomplished what you have set out for the day. If you can even check off a few blue tasks, you are overachieving and you should be really proud of yourself. And we are done with that whole process. I'm proud of you for finishing up this whole video, and also hopefully you have completed your TSL and it is ready to guide you through the rest of home-based learning. Drop the comments below, how did this whole thing help you? Subscribe and like if you haven't already, and I will see you really shortly in the next video. Take care and bye!